Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's the flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh, shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Only Football Podcast. Tonight, we are going to be recapping Championship Sunday. Eagles and Chiefs move on. Going to be talking a little bit about the Bills and the Commanders as well. We're going to be talking about the new coaching hires. Bears with Ben Johnson, Jags with Liam Cohen, Pete Carroll to the Raiders, Vrabel to the Patriots. There's one vacancy left. And of course, we're going to end it off with the Chives with Kyle. Oh, let's get it. America is football. Football is
America. And if you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass on the moment in time. I'll give it 10. Oh my God. You love this.
30 to 27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20. Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast.
Yo,
I'm Kyle and that's Rick.
I'm Rick, that's Kyle.
We got a Super Bowl on our hands. I can't believe it.
I know, dude. This is insane. It feels like yesterday the season just started, and now we're Super Bowl week in a couple weeks.
It does, but are you surprised about the Super Bowl? Not necessarily surprised about the Chiefs and the Eagles winning last week, but just let me take you to week 8.
Mm-hmm.
Are you surprised about the Super Bowl?
Yeah. I think obviously a lot of people, as well as we did, had the Lions in the Super Bowl as the NFC representatives. Not a lot of people, I think, had the Eagles. At least I never really heard Eagles talk. It was really just Lions and maybe, I don't know, if we're going back to the playoffs, maybe like Rams were a good pick. Maybe even the Vikings at that point because they had so many wins and were so dominant during the regular season. So I think a lot of people were, going towards those teams in terms of making the Super Bowl. Lions and Vikings probably top 2. But yeah, no, the Eagles making it, again, they had a very, very good season, but very surprising when you're talking about week 8, week 9 type stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Lions for me were my team that was going to get in, and then the Eagles were number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Eagles just kind of took care of business all season long. They never really got a ton of credit. Even when they were winning 8-9 games in a row, I felt like they weren't getting a ton of credit. But
Yeah.
Whenever you bring in a new coordinator, and you're going to experience this year, and we'll talk about that later, but It's like for the players to buy in, it takes a little while for that system to be to the point where the players aren't thinking, they're just reacting, and it's instinctual. And you could see the Eagles playing better defense as the season went on.
Yeah.
And they truly were that team this year that got better as the season went on. Like I think Buffalo, I mean, they were great all season. I think Kansas City's been kind of the same all season, but they definitely played their best football game last Sunday, for what it's worth. So, but the Eagles were, I think, the only other team that you can make a case for is the Rams in Matthew Stafford's final 6 games, which he won all of those. The Rams seemed to be getting better as the season went on, and there was a lot of that Chiefs mentality, I think, where it's like, I'm just saving it for when we have to turn it on. And the Rams were able to do that. Unfortunately, they lost to the team that slowly got better every single week up until now, which makes for a very fascinating Super Bowl, because I feel like the Chiefs just reminded the whole world, hey, we're not that team that the week 4, week 5 Chiefs that you guys thought was going to be the team that showed up. In a blink of an eye, we just reminded the world, like, hey, we're professionals. At the end of the day, we know how to turn it on and when to turn it on. And now we've kind of had to reevaluate the Chiefs in a way. And we're wondering, okay, well, who should be the favorite in this game? And we're not going to talk about that game. We're not going to give predictions about that game. But
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But just before we dive into the recap, who do you think should be the favorite in the Super Bowl?
I think it's the Chiefs. I think they're going to be the favorite. Gun to the head. First of all, why is there a gun in my head? Secondly, it's the Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs for favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs will probably pull away as like a 1.5 point favorite. I think it'll be close.
Yeah, I could see that too. I could definitely see a very close line, because like you've taught me in the past, like 1.5, it's like there's not really a clear, way to go here. So 1.5 is like the least you can do for like whoever is the favorite in this case.
Well, let's get into the first game. So the first game was the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles, and as you can see there on the score, it was lopsided. And as much as the Eagles dominated this game, I think the score wouldn't tell you the whole story if you didn't watch the game. I don't feel like the entire game we were like, this is going to be a blowout. It did feel like the Commanders were playing from behind multiple possessions.
But
it wasn't until middle of third quarter and then the fourth quarter that it was just like put a nail in it. I felt like Jaden Daniels played as good as he needed to win even. The numbers were there. The touchdowns were there. I mean, he made a couple plays. Like, he made one play that was just miraculous to me. It was, I think it was a 2-point conversion, and there was pressure coming in his face.
Yeah.
And he just like knew where to go with the ball. It was really just like that type of instincts at the quarterback position where like that was a bailout throw, and it was in the perfect spot. And he was either on the perfect, like on the same page with his receiver, or that is just part of the gifts of playing quarterback that we don't really know as like people that watch the game, analyze the game. There is a certain portion of the circle graph that we reserve for this just special talent that doesn't really have a word for it. We could call it instincts. But you saw it in that game a couple times. You saw it on his, I think it was like a 20-yard rushing touchdown when there was nothing really available, and he was patient, and then he cut it inside and then took it to the end zone. I mean, Jaden Daniels, to me, did what he needed to do to put his team in position to win this game. There was multiple fumbles in the game, one of them being on a a kickoff return that gave the ball right back to Philly again when you saw Dan Quinn, his vote of confidence, using those timeouts to be aggressive late in the first half. And I felt like the team just let him down. Zach Ertz, just a couple just plays there that he had a couple good plays, and it was definitely probably a revenge game for him, but
Mm-hmm.
there was also some plays there that you looked at and you're like, oh my gosh, will somebody make a play? And
Yeah.
nobody could stop Saquon Barkley on the
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball. I mean, Saquon was having his way. He would have gone probably over 250 or 150 if they didn't sub him out of the game. Probably would have
Mm-hmm.
got another touchdown too. But that to me is the story of the game, and it's also going to carry over to next week. Who's
Yeah.
going to stop Saquon Barkley in the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line? I think they lost their O lineman, and there was a play where you saw him on the sideline arguing like, "I'm good, I'm good, I'm good."
Who was it? It was Dickerson.
I
It
think
was it
I
was the
don't.
center or Jurgens, one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was.
Yeah.
But he was arguing on the sideline like, "No, I'm good to go. I'm good to go." And then
Mm-hmm.
when he did go back in the game, there was a touchdown that got called back or a significant gain because of a holding penalty, which you could tell he was only doing because he was injured and he wasn't where he
Mm-hmm.
needed to be, so he was compensating. And they pulled him out of the game, and he never came back in the game. But it didn't really affect the running game for the Eagles. So I think that's really what it is for the
Yeah.
Commanders is that they were just out leagued, outmatched, outmanned, outstrength, and they were out experienced. But I
Mm-hmm.
think for the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, it didn't look like Jaden was in over his skis. I mean, he had a better conference championship game than frickin' Lamar Jackson had last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reason to believe that you're going to be back in this game and maybe even in the Super Bowl next year if you're a Commanders fan. But for this game, it was all Eagles.
Yeah, 100%. And real quick, want to shout out Edub, Nick, and Richard in the chat. Appreciate you guys being here. Going back to Jaden Daniels, what you said in that 2 point conversion where it seemed lost, it seemed like the Eagles were going to get to him. I mean, he just has a clutch gene to him, man. And it's crazy that he has that in his rookie season because we can look at this and, Commanders fans obviously are going to be mad. They're going to be upset about the loss because what a magical fucking season they've had, right? But you can look at this kind of like what you said. Like, there's no reason to believe the Commanders can't be in this very same game next year. We've got to remember the Commanders of last year. We were talking about it. Sam Howell getting sacked. The O-line looks like shit. The defense can't stop anybody. Can't hold teams to under 25, 27 points or whatever it was. This team did a lot with a lot of the same roster as last year. So that deserves a lot of credit to Dan Quinn, to Cliff Kingsbury, and the entire staff there on the Commanders. And obviously, we got to shout out the ownership group. Taking over. This is their second season. Ownership group in 2 seasons goes to the NFC Championship game, drafts a franchise quarterback, has stellar games from all sorts of playmakers. So a lot of credit to the Commanders. Like I said, it wouldn't be surprising if they are back in this same game next year, or if they're winning the division, if they're close to it, if they're neck and neck with the Eagles, such and such. I just don't think that it's going to be foreign to the Commanders and Commanders fans that they'll be back in the playoffs. On the other side for the Eagles, it was just an all-out blitz, man. It was like an offensive just stomping. 7 rushing touchdowns, 3 from Jalen Hurts, 3 from Saquon, 1 from Will Shipley. AJ Brown had a receiving touchdown. So it was to what you were saying. It didn't seem like a stomping in the first half. It was really like the third quarter where it kind of all changed. And I'm looking here. It wasn't even the third quarter. It was really the fourth quarter where they scored 3 touchdowns, because in the third quarter it was an 8-7 scoring there. The Eagles were 27-15 going into halftime. They had scored. The Commanders had scored 8, so they made it 23-34. So it looked to be somewhat still in the hands of the Commanders, like they could come back. But then the Eagles blew the doors off of the Commanders and that defense in the fourth quarter. They scored 3 touchdowns. They just destroyed that defense. The defense for the Commanders, like you said, we're always playing from behind. Lattimore was getting in his feels, getting in the face of A.J. Brown or whoever was in the area. And it just, you and I were talking about it. It just didn't seem like they were kind of holding back and making sure that they were playing the game right instead of letting their emotions get to them. Either way, Eagles with just a commanding win, 55-23. Credit to the Eagles, man. Again, a lot of us did not have them in the Super Bowl, mid-season, going into this, or even going into this season. But here they are again for another rematch with the Chiefs.
Yeah, and for the Eagles, there might not be a window that they're in where it's like they have to capitalize on being there this year.
Yeah.
I think with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and all the young talent and the new coordinators that are going to, be coordinators for the Eagles next year as well, it feels like the window is kind of open for them.
And they've got a dominating offensive line too.
Yeah, a dominating offensive line. It's like they're building their team the right way. Jalen Carter, the list goes on and on. So as much as the Eagles are going to want to get a ring, I do think for Jalen Hurts, like if he can get a ring this year, he should be considered an elite quarterback in the league because he's taken his team to the Super Bowl twice in the last 4 years. And I know he didn't win the last one, but at least for me, like the way you look in the Super Bowl matters a lot.
Yeah.
And he played a hell of a game. He scored every time he took the field, it felt like. I don't think I saw them punt once in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think the Eagles long run, and for the Commanders, there's when you mentioned the Commanders' success, the one thing, the Broncos and the Commanders both got quarterbacks, but they also both got new owners 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they also both are, Sean's in his second year, Dan Quinn's in his first year. But those two teams have dramatically gone in a better direction only 2 years after getting new owners, which I think is going to bring up some question marks about how important ownership really is, because we know coaching's important and we know having a good rookie quarterback's important. But the trifecta of having all three is proving to be more valuable than I think people know. We tend to focus on the players and the coaches, not really the owners. But you've been mentioning what it's like as a Bears fan,
I was going to get into that too. I was like, it shows that especially owners who have the money and spend the money, they don't want to fucking just keep it all. That is also very important. Going out, getting the best guy, going out, getting the best coach, the best coordinators, the best players in the draft through free agency. It makes a huge difference to that team, and it makes fan bases, you're a great example of that with the Broncos, much happier to be a fan of that team. You're telling me Commanders fans from last year to this year, yes, the ownership changed last season, but from last year to this year aren't even more psyched? You're telling me Broncos fans who just went, again, 2 years into a new ownership group, got a head coach who's a certified winner, getting their quarterback, making sure that their roster is you're getting everything out of them. Like, you guys aren't happier? Like, that's what you get from ownership groups and front offices that take that take winning as a priority. And that's exactly what you're seeing with the Commanders and the Broncos. And hopefully the Bears now kind of turn in that corner in terms of spending money, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, and Nick's comment here, Jane Daniels is the new Patrick Mahomes. Think about it. Passed on by the Bears, taken by a struggle franchise, bringing them back to contention his first year as a starter. The one caveat I would say to that is when you think about it, there's more to the criteria of being the next Mahomes than being passed on in making a bad team successful in their first year. Because Mahomes did that, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But also the way he did it is different than any of these quarterbacks. Like Brock Purdy,
Mm-hmm.
the way he did it
Yeah.
was pretty cool, but nobody was like when Mahomes played his first full year as a starter, we had never seen a quarterback play like that ever.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I think I think that would be like a little generous at this point. But I'm gonna play with something really quick. But what did
Mm-hmm.
you? Let's get into our second game, the Bills and the
Yep.
Chiefs. Give me your immediate takeaway of that game.
Yeah, talk about heartbreak, man. I mean, we've seen the Bills in this exact game time and time and time and time again, four times to be exact, right? Against the Chiefs. And I saw basically a supercut, I think on Instagram or on Facebook, I forget where, or on X, um, of Josh Allen post game press conference, talking about how it felt to lose to the Chiefs. And it was like, yeah, it sucks back in 2021, 2022, or 2020, 2021, 2023. And then it was this time that he was just like, obviously they edited the clip, but he was just like speechless because this has happened to him so many times. It's not foreign to him, unfortunately. And I think we talked about it post game, after that game went final, that Josh Allen is just going to be one of those quarterbacks who doesn't get their Super Bowl until maybe later into his career, 10 seasons into his career. Thinking about Elway, Sims, Peyton Manning in a sense, right? Like he got his in his like seventh, eighth season, something like that, when he beat the Bears, and then with the Broncos, pretty much at his a year or so before his retirement. So Josh Allen may just have to be like this. May have to be the path for success for him. The Bills aren't gonna trade him away. They're certified playoff team with him. And this goes the same for like Lamar and a select few other quarterbacks, Stafford as well. He won his a few years ago. But Josh Allen just might be his career, where he proves that he's an MVP of the league, gets into the playoffs, plays really, really well, but just can't get to the Super Bowl, can't win that most important game until, hopefully for Josh Allen, the later years of his career. Hopefully he does get one. Buffalo definitely deserves one. Bills Mafia, that whole organization and its fans, in my opinion, deserve one really, really bad. They've been close and they've lost a lot. So I think they deserve one, especially with Bills Mafia, with how generous they are in terms of donations when it comes to a player on the opposing team, getting another team, all that stuff. So the Chiefs, on the other hand, they do this again. Mahomes went up to Josh Allen and said, sorry, it had to be me again, but good game, whatever it was. He said that in his post-game press conference. And you were right at the beginning, at the top of the show. You said, it seems like they just saved it for this game. And this was probably one of their best games that they've played all season, literally all season into this postseason. And it was the most important game because it gets you to the Super Bowl and it gives them a chance to get that three-peat. Mahomes was good. Travis Kelce, for the most part, I don't think really had too many like he didn't really have a lot of catches or anything. I'm looking now. Travis Kelce, 2 catches, 19 yards. Xavier Worthy was really the number one guy, and Juju Smith-Schuster had a couple really big-time catches as well, but Xavier Worthy had the touchdown. Patrick Mahomes had 2 rushing touchdowns. Kareem Hunt had a rushing touchdown. So this Chiefs team, they play their best games, but it's the guys that you least expect to have the success. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is going to be the guy, the general, the quarterback for all of it. But Xavier Worthy with a touchdown, Kareem Hunt with a touchdown, Mahomes rushing for 2 touchdowns. Again, you're thinking Kelce, you're thinking DeAndre Hopkins, you're thinking Isaiah Pacheco, and neither of those guys really had that much of an impact. So the Chiefs can win games in so many ways. And again, they saved their probably biggest point output, or at least it seems like that, for the conference championship against the Bills.
Yeah, it's man, the confetti falling down at Arrowhead, Mahomes and Andy Reid hugging, Travis Kelce kissing Taylor Swift, and then Travis Kelce grabbing the mic and giving everyone permission to start partying. It's like
Thank you.
we everything just looked so familiar, didn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
and then not only was that familiar, but the opponent that they're playing is familiar. I think sometimes the Super Bowl is fun when it's like the random ones where it's like the Bengals and Rams. What? It makes more sense now, but at the time it was kind of strange. And the fact that the Chiefs won it again, I could understand people cheering for the Bills. I think it's not just that people are hating because they're succeeding. I think sometimes people just want to see something new and somebody else win it, and I think that's why people were going for Buffalo so hard. I feel like America was going for Buffalo in this one.
I agree.
And I thought Buffalo played a good game, and I feel so bad for Josh Allen, man, because like he made that play, man, that throw to Dalton Kincaid. That would have been one of the all-time great Super Bowl plays. And we got robbed of it because he didn't catch the ball. And it's like you go back to other ones, and there's like the missed field goal that would have been the go-ahead field goal last year's conference game, or not getting the ball back and losing the coin toss in overtime. It's just like there's always something. And the Bills remind me of good guys finish last. That phrase of like,
could see that
the like good guys just like will always be, but then eventually that's not true. There's always that movie where like the guy is just a good guy and everyone overlooks him for like the hotter, more rich guy that treats his wife like crap. And then eventually she breaks up with him. And then the good guy ends up getting with the hot woman. And that's going to be when Josh Allen finally wins a Super Bowl. It's like good guys don't finish last. There's hope. There's hope for the Bills. But the fans, what do you say to them after everything that they've been through? I mean, this is a franchise that went to 4 Super Bowls in a row and won 0 of them. Like this is brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal what the Bills, they've never won a Super Bowl.
Nope. Never.
That's just it for a team that's been to so many. It's crazy. Von Miller said after the game, that's football. The loss hurts. That's what makes this game what it is. We did everything in our power to win and just, ran out of time.
Yep.
And that is what happened. And I felt like there was a couple calls that people are making a big thing of. Like you thought on that run that Josh Allen did get the first down. Some people are alluding to the play before that as well, which was a very similar sequence of plays that we saw when the Chiefs played the Raiders on Black Friday, I believe, where they had a third down that looked like it was an obvious first down, but they marked it 4th and 1, and then the Raiders ran up and they're like, we're going to go for it. I think they would have won the challenge.
Yeah.
They decided to go for it and then got stopped, and then the Chiefs scored and the game was over. It was very similar to that, where a lot of people thought that they converted on third down, and then Josh Allen ends up doing the QB sneak, and it ends up not picking up the first down. What did you've had some time to think about that play. What do you think about that one?
I think he had it. I do. And you go back to that play because that one has been shared several times. Obviously, NFL scripted, Chiefs scripted, rigged, all that stuff. It's been shown a lot of times. And where the marker was this is what is being said is 1/3, the front 1/3 of the football crossed the first down line. It did. And there's angles of it where you don't see the ball, it's behind the player. Yeah, exactly. It's Kyle having to do a picture for you guys. Visuals help. But yeah, the way the angles are, in my opinion, and in the opinion of broadcasters, I think Steratore also said it. Gene Steratore, the fucking guy who everybody hates when he agrees with the refs, also said that it looked like he had the first down, and then unfortunately they turned it over. So that might be the play that really turned the game around. It could also be the Dalton Kincaid drop with a minute and 30 seconds left or whatever to keep the drive going. Similar to Mark Andrews the week prior against the Bills in that AFC champ or in the divisional game, who couldn't catch the 2-point conversion. So tight ends were having a rough go in the AFC for 2 weeks in a row. But in my opinion, I think he had it. I think the drive should have kept going.
Yeah, Josh Allen's 4th down conversion that ended up being a touchdown. They had 2 touchdowns on 4th down.
Yeah.
The one that he threw into the back of the end zone, his last touchdown pass, that was remarkable. And I'm just like, dude, that's what makes him so fun to watch, is he always comes through in these moments where you're so nervous watching, and yet he's like totally chill and makes it happen. And you're like, dude, that's why you're one of the best.
That's why you get to hit it with Haley Steinfeld every night.
Potentially. Maybe there's other factors at play. I don't know. That's probably it. But still, regardless, he's already, in my opinion, he's John Elway. He's John Elway. He's this era's John Elway. And John Elway is a quarterback that is like, I mean, he's a legend. I mean, he really is. And Josh Allen is going to be, when it's all said and done, he's going to be a legend. People forget how many times John Elway came up short before he won the Super Bowl at like 37 years old, his first Super Bowl.
That was the helicopter game, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, the first Super Bowl was against the Falcons, right? In 19. No. You're right. The first was against the Packers, and they were an underdog. And then the one after that, they played the Falcons, and they were the favorite, and they won both of them. But everybody says the year they were a 13-point underdog to the Packers, and that was the best one. There's something about being an underdog that's just way better than being the favorite.
100%, yeah.
And 37, 38 years old, and how many times did he get he almost retired and didn't even play those years. I mean, he would have retired never winning a Super Bowl. And it wouldn't have even been like, oh, he retired early. He would have retired at 36 years old. Yeah. That would have been totally a normal age to hang it up back then, before Tom Brady and Brett Favre made it normal to play till you're
40s or till you're geriatric, Dan Marino type shit. Yeah.
But I feel like Josh Allen's having that similar career of John Elway, where he's just lighting it up. Definitely the best, second best, whatever, in the league. But I don't know. I mean, let me just wrap it up with this. Josh Allen with Andy Reid.
Shit.
What changes for Josh Allen?
I don't know. He has a head coach that is the play caller. I think that's a big factor.
Is Sean McDermott holding Josh Allen back in any way?
That is such a difficult question, man, because this isn't this is such a difficult question because Sean McDermott He's been in the playoffs multiple times as a head coach, multiple times. And he's gotten them to the AFC Championship game, and they keep losing to the Chiefs. I don't know if a coaching change, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I just don't know. But what I will say about Sean McDermott as a head coach, he's a defensive guy. His defenses, when it matters the most, have just crumbled. They have crumbled. We go back to the 12-second game. You're right, 13, 14 seconds, whatever it was against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. This game, like his defenses, whatever he is calling, whatever plays he's drawing up for them, they are not working. And it is shown in some of the most important moments for this for this Bills defense. It is not working. And who are you going to look at? You're not going to look at the DC. You're going to look at the defensive-minded head coach who has made his way to head coach after being a DC and working all his way there with the defense. So that is the biggest thing with him. And also, I don't know. Josh Allen may just be, I don't want to say cursed, but that unlucky to where, like you said, he's just going to have a Super Bowl win when he's mid-30s, close to retiring, close to calling it, right? So that just may be his career. The one thing I will say to wrap this up finally, though, is if the Bills want to do the fucking tush push, get everybody behind Josh Allen. There's a reason the Eagles have 3 guys behind Jalen Hurts. And yes, Jalen Hurts squats a military tank and a Ford F-350 at the same time, and he can do that. But you got to get more guys behind Josh Allen for that tush push to work more effectively. That I think as well is a big kind of like blemish on that offensive performance on Sunday.
But and then I'll wrap it up. But you know how the Steelers never get
I'll wrap it up.
No, I'll wrap it up.
No,
you lock it up. No,
you lock it up.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me. You know how the Steelers never do bad enough to get a good draft pick to get an actual franchise quarterback, and they stay stuck?
Yep.
I think Josh Allen's too good for the Bills to be bad enough to fire their head coach.
Yep.
And that's how good Josh Allen is. I mean, we watch him play. We know what he is. Like, how will a guy like that ever turn in a season bad enough for the Bills to let go of Sean McDermott? Now, the only way that they could do this is the way Denver did it in 2014. In 2012, that Manning signs a 4-year deal. His first year, they have a 2-3 record by week 5, and then they go 13-3, never lost again. Go into the divisional round as the number 1 seed, and then the Ravens have that bullshit Hail Mary, and they win the Super Bowl. The second year, we make it to the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning breaks every record still to this day, and we get blown out by the Seahawks. Third year, we go into the playoffs, number 1 seed again, good numbers, and we lose. I was at this game. We lose to the Colts and Andrew Luck in the first round, bounced. And Andrew Luck and the Colts go on to play the Patriots in the AFC Championship, and the Patriots would move on to the Super Bowl where they would play the Seahawks, and that's when Seattle could have won 2 in a row, but they threw it instead of gave it to Marshawn Lynch.
Yep.
And at that point, the Broncos fired John Fox after those 3 years. Now, that is kind of weird, right? Because you've made it to the playoffs 3 times. You went to 1 Super Bowl. You've broken all these records. And yet you fire the head coach that did it, and you say, it hasn't been good enough. It just hasn't. Yeah. We should have won a Super Bowl by now. Then they bring in Gary Kubiak, and in Manning's last year wins the Super Bowl. And then everything's over after that. Yeah. But it really just depends, like, where the Bills draw that line from like this type of success is great, but it's just not good enough ultimately. You saw the Milwaukee Bucks do this last year where they had a good
Yes.
record and they fired their head coach and they're like,
Yep.
so what is the standard in Buffalo? Is this acceptable? And how much longer will it be acceptable is a fascinating question because you could make an argument for both sides. You really
Yeah.
could. You could say that this was a down year. Buffalo didn't have a ton of talent. And look what he pulled out of this roster. And then you could say you have the greatest quarterback, arguably, in the league or second, and you haven't gotten to a Super Bowl and you've only gotten to 2 conference championships.
Yeah.
So it's a question that we're probably going to hear a lot, especially more as this loss kind of settles in and Bills fans start to really figure out, okay, like, do we feel good about our future, etc. Stuff that people do in the offseason, try to figure out what direction are we headed. And the Ravens are kind of in this situation with Harbaugh, where it's like,
Yeah.
how much longer is Harbaugh's 13-3 seasons acceptable? How much longer is that okay? Now, like, you got coaches that are totally safe, like Sean McVay, but Kyle Shanahan, how much longer is that acceptable?
Yep.
How much longer
Same.
is Mike McDaniel in Miami allowed to continue to be that cool hipster joggers coach that
And they're the offensive guys too.
and then you got guys like Vic Fangio leaving, saying that it's not a professional environment. And guess what?
Oh wow.
That guy's going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Fangio doesn't fuck around too.
no, he doesn't. So it's really cool to try to figure out, like, out of all the great / really good coaches or just good coaches that put up a good year, at what point is the rope kind of out of rope that you've come to the end of it and you say, we're going to just try something different? I mean, do you think that the Bills are getting anywhere close to that territory with Sean?
Yeah. It's a simple yes, because like you said, where does this sort of plateauing, when is the ownership going to be like, all right, that's enough plateauing. We've got to be able to take this next step and win. You've seen it again. You bring up a great example with the Broncos and Peyton Manning. You get rid of Fox, you bring in Kubiak, you win the Super Bowl. Sean McVay, right, turned the Rams literally into a Super Bowl contender with Jared Goff and then won it with Matthew Stafford. The Bucks brought in, I forget the name of the coach, glasses, kind of looks like the Andy Reid, great value. I forget his
Bowles?
No. Before Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles. You know what I'm talking about?
Holmgren?
No, not Holmgren. God damn it.
I want to think of him. Give me a descriptive
Bucks
way. I'm not looking it up.
Coach 2020.
How does it?
Bruce Arians.
No, I want to.
Sorry. I just wanted to speed this up, but it was Bruce Arians. You bring him in, you bring in Tom Brady, you win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I think Bills fans and the front office is going to get to a point soon where they're going to be like, okay, you've gotten us to the AFC Championship, and your defense has just not been there in the most important moments of that game, and we can't move forward. It's really a kind of a punch in the gut to be that coach, but also you've got to make really hard decisions to get to that Super Bowl, to get to that ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And sometimes it means getting rid of a John Fox, getting rid of I forget the name of the Rams coach before they brought in Sean McVay, but getting rid of him, right? It has to be done.
Yeah, and The surprising thing was a lot of people concerned about the lingering knee injury for Hurts. He accounted for 4 of the 8 total touchdowns, and he did say in his press conference that they let me out of my straitjacket a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was just kind of funny. And it's also kind of weird timing considering we were all worried about that knee, and then they just like let him loose in this game.
Yeah.
It didn't look like an issue, so we'll see how that holds up in the next couple of weeks or if he has any injury designation going into it. But let's talk about some coaching.
Yeah.
There is some coaching news going on. There's been some coaching news going on. We'll start with the big news. We know about the Bears head coach, Matt
Mm-hmm.
Eberflus, ex-head coach Matt Eberflus.
Don't you dare say that.
How does that sound, ex-head coach
Uh,
Matt
it
Eberflus?
feels it feels great and real quick. This is an awesome comment by Nick. Rick's got the clock skills of Bears head coaches. I'm glad that won't be a fucking issue anymore, Nick, and to everybody. So yeah, I'm very happy about Eberflus being an ex Bears head coach.
I love how you always get the blame when we're late.
Yeah, it just comes with the territory, I guess.
It is you.
Yeah,
Um, so everybody, it's always Rick.
it is always me.
I guess
Right.
they assume like Bronco, Sean Payton, we got clock management down. You're guilty by association with all the Bears stuff.
You
But
just can't fuck it up as bad as Eberflus did on Thanksgiving. Everyone saw that, so
dude,
they're like, "Yeah, that guy."
that was actually the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I don't know if that'll ever change.
Hmm. I don't know either.
That is, yeah, that's why he's gone. And
Hmm.
you do something like that, and you wonder, will this guy ever have a job again? And today, the Cowboys have hired him
Yep.
to be their new defensive coordinator. What do you think about this hire? There's a part of you that, like maybe Nathaniel Hackett, where you're like, hey, yeah, as a head coach, he's over his skis, can't do all the things that it takes a head coach to do. But when it came to the defense, the Bears had a pretty good defense, at least for part of the season.
Hmm.
And then it kind of like got shitty, but so did all the parts of the game for the Bears. So like it plays into it. Like when
Yeah.
the offense can't go on drives, the defense gets tired. It's harder to
Hmm.
keep the defense playing at a high level, et cetera. So what do you think about Matt Eberflus getting hired for the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator? Because whoever replaced Dan Quinn,
Hmm.
they fired Mike McCarthy. That I guess that means. Is it ever the case where a head coach gets fired and they keep the DC there? I know like they allowed the DC to interview with the new head coach sometimes, but it almost
Yeah.
seems like because of loyalty stuff, most
Hmm.
people are like, you fired my guy that believed in me, I'm out too. Um,
Yeah.
so the Cowboys, I mean, what do you think about Matt Eberflus? Does he have a relationship with Schottenheimer or whatever his name is?
Schottenheimer. Yeah. I don't know if he has a relationship with Schottenheimer. Um, I know Eberflus before the Bears was with the Colts. I don't know exactly what Brian Schottenheimer's career has been. But in terms of what Eberflus can do as a DC, I think he's a good, very good DC. I don't think he's a great DC. I don't think he is oh my god, why am I forgetting his name? The Chiefs guy. Uh,
Spags?
God, why can't I?
Spagnolia?
Spags. He's not a Spagnuolo. He's not a Vic Fangio. He's not one of these guys.
Vance Joseph?
He's not. Well, yeah, Vance Joseph recently. Yeah, I would say so. This year and then half of last season was like, okay, Vance Joseph is in his bag now, finally, right?
With the Cardinals too. He had he's responsible for a lot of the who's their safety that
Buda Baker.
Buda Baker,
Yeah,
Zach
it's just
Allen.
when he started with the Broncos, even you were like, "What the fuck are we doing?" Right? And I'm sure Nick probably agrees, but it got better. And so I think with Eberflus to
Yeah,
Dallas,
70 points.
yeah, exactly. There you go. Exactly. That's all anybody has to say. I think for Vance Joseph's first half of a defensive coordinator with the
Third
Broncos,
game. I was there.
yeah, it was bad. But Eberflus is a very good DC. I think He can get a lot out of those guys, Micah Parsons, all those guys there in Dallas. I don't know how well he is going to resonate with those players because when Eberflus lost that game against the Lions, and it was probably that game or the week prior, Jalen Johnson, the longest tenured Bear, reports were saying that, hey, if Jalen Johnson was giving it to Flus, like, dude, we keep doing the same shit, and we keep, like, he was giving him shit that final game, and Eberflus was just like, after that thing that Jalen Johnson said to him, he just walked out. He just walked out. So I think he's going to be good. I think his scheme, for the most part, is good. He could be dominating. We have seen the Bears' defense this first 6 games of the season, last half of last year, was dominant. It was tops of the league. There was just too many stretches where that defense was not good. They were letting up 30 plus points. They didn't seem like they gave a shit. And they just weren't good. And decisions, the attitude there, the attitude just wasn't there either. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson, that Hail Mary against the Commanders, great example of that, right? So I think Eberflus's defense, like his mind going into a defense, is very good. It's just, how is he going to do in Dallas with big personalities like a Micah Parsons, right? So can he get through to that? Maybe. We'll see. But again, his plan, his scheme, I think is going to be very good for Dallas. And obviously the turnover is also very good too. But Schottenheimer is the Cowboys head coach. And even Jerry Jones went on like during one of the pressers for it. He's like, hey, we're taking a big swing here. It's never been done. Offensive coordinator moving up to head coach. So I'm taking a big swing here. Schottenheimer, though, I will say, weird press conference. It didn't seem very confident. He's like, we're going to win, because if we're not, then what are we even doing here? And it's like, oh, okay, dude, I guess somebody's inspired by that. Not me, but somebody is. If I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'd be hopeful, but I wouldn't be very confident.
Yeah, the other news, there's quite a bit, so might go through kind of quick. But
yeah,
one of the ones that I really liked was Chuck Pagano hired as the Ravens senior secondary coach.
Yeah.
Now that is a very interesting title that I've never spoken out of my mouth. Senior secondary coach. Didn't know it existed, but I do know who Chuck Pagano is, and this guy's got a heart of gold. He often makes appearances on the Pat McAfee show because Pat McAfee played under Chuck. And he's just like a player's coach. A lot of people remember that he was diagnosed with acute promyelite leukemia.
You got it. That was it. You got it.
Yeah, there's a big one. He underwent treatment at the IU Simon Center in Indianapolis, and he actually returned to coaching 3 months later.
Yeah.
Inspiration. He was diagnosed in September, and he returned to coaching in December.
I remember when that was a big story too, and a lot of players were pulling for him, and then he came out and luckily beat it.
Yeah, and then he launched the Chuck Strong Initiative shortly after, and he's participated in a ton of fundraising events, even free throw contests where he raised $2 million for cancer research. So, like, this guy has really, like, used his platform and his financial, I guess, generational wealth. He's used it to try to put good back into the world. And that's all you can ask for out of people, especially when something terrible like that happens. He's like, hey, let me just try to do my part. I love this guy, man.
Yeah.
He also, when Andrew Luck abruptly retired, he goes, Andrew Luck is one of the best individuals, teammates, and competitors I've ever been around in my lifetime. I could go on and on, but that's the first sentence. A lot of people were pissed when Andrew Luck retired. Not Chuck, not somebody like that. And
Yeah.
I feel like that says everything about him. So joining the Ravens, I think this is a great move for the Ravens
Mm-hmm.
because the Ravens and John Harbaugh has always been a player's guy. In the Navy, we had a chaplain, and the chaplain's not like one specific religion. He's every religion.
Yeah.
He's like just somebody to talk to. The Ravens are the only team that has that. And the players have come out in documentaries and been like, this is a franchise where like it's not just about playing on the field. Like if you have off the field stuff going on, like you don't have to practice. Like you can go talk to this guy, you can talk to John Harbaugh. It's a family. And bringing in Chuck is just like another one of those guys that's just going to make a place that's already great even greater, I think. Um I don't know if it's going to give the secondary for the Ravens like a boost. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that his football knowledge is going to go a long way, but this is just a big name that's been out of coaching for a while. That's exciting to see him back with the team.
Yeah, and again, the fit with the Ravens, I think, is going to be great with Harbaugh there. Let's shift to the West because the AFC West got another really good coach. Pete Carroll is the Raiders head coach. He's won with the Seahawks. He's won in USC, so he's been through college ranks. He's been through the NFL. He got let go, or he was forcefully retired from the Seahawks a couple seasons ago, but now he's back as a head coach for the Raiders. Raiders missed out on Ben Johnson, who went to the Bears, and they got Pete Carroll. He's 73 years old, doesn't look anything 73, doesn't act anything like 73. What did you think about this hire, especially being a Broncos fan with Sean Payton, with Andy Reid, and with Jim Harbaugh in that division?
I think Chuck Pagano would have been a better hire. That's what I think about it. I mean, Pete Carroll is. I think it's interesting because Pete Carroll's very. I say this with respect. He's old. Like Pete Carroll is not getting any younger.
Mm,
How old is he? 73 years old.
73.
You would think, I mean, he was born in 1951. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's been doing this for a long time and he's always been high energy. He's always acted way younger. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I just didn't think that he had another adventure left in him. It made
Yep.
sense when he was moving up to a higher position with the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he was going to sell his house and, go to Las Vegas of all places.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very surprised, but this is already by far immediately the best head coaching division, period. Nothing comes close to it. You got,
Yeah.
I mean, combined, you only have one coach that hasn't won a Super Bowl, and he's been to a Super Bowl, and that guy's won a national championship. Like, this is an extremely
Mm-hmm.
tough division. But
Mm-hmm.
Pete Carroll is going to have a tall task. The,
Yeah.
the the Raiders have a lot of work to be done, and
Mm-hmm.
this is an entire rebuild. I mean, you have Tom Brady beat Seattle in the Super Bowl, so maybe Tom Brady now working in management, maybe he got to know Pete Carroll and he was like, I really like Pete Carroll. I don't know how much of a say Tom Brady has,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a part-time owner for the
Yep.
Raiders.
Yep.
So maybe if you got Tom Brady as your part-time owner, I'm pretty sure you're probably asking him to make the call on the head coach.
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of sway, and I think that's what some of the early reports were with Ben Johnson was, hey, he had conversations with Brady. Brady obviously has 7 rings. He's got this championship aura around him. But I agree, definitely the best coach division for sure in terms of like Super Bowls, championships, being at those big games and being able to succeed in those big games too. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh unable to win a Super Bowl, but
And
he's been
why
to the
was he fired from Seattle?
They were kind of ready to move on.
They were
kind of
ready
ready
to
to
move
move
on
on.
in
Yeah,
what was going on offensively with Seattle.
exactly. They were plummeting.
They were plummeting,
Yeah.
and is even under Russell Wilson, the only Super Bowls that they won was the Legion of Boom,
Yep.
and it wasn't like that they were putting up crazy numbers. So I just, with the way the offense is going, I feel like Pete Carroll's going to bring stability. I don't
Yep.
know if he's going to bring um exceeding the expectations. Okay, I think
This
that
guy's 73. What do you like?
yeah,
You got to win in 3 years if this is a successful coaching hire. You know what I
he's
mean? This
got.
guy's,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long he's going to want to coach, but if his
yeah.
doctor said he's in good shape. But like, I feel very similar to this as I do Mike Vrabel in New England. It's like you're going into a situation where you need a lot,
Yeah.
and you're going into a very tough division, and you're going to bring stability.
Hmm.
Mike Vrabel and Pete Carroll, I feel very similar about that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this by any means that the Raiders are contenders. I
Hmm.
also think that this might actually be a blemish on Pete Carroll's overall career. And looking back on it, I think he's going to regret this.
That may be true, and that not only him, but front office and some fans. Now, I gave you a bit of a taste of the drama of our next head coach, and then after this one, we'll move on to the chives here. Um, but Liam Cohen to the Jaguars, interesting path to being the head coach. And I talked to you about it. I think after we ended the stream with the Bills and Chiefs on Sunday, but Liam Cohen was set to be the highest paid coordinator. He had a handshake deal with the Tampa Bay Bucks front office. And contingent on that handshake deal, contingent on him being the highest paid coordinator, they said you cannot have a second interview with the Jags. What happens? Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, fires Trent Baalke, the GM who was once an interim GM and who was like, you know what, I'm actually a pretty good GM. You should hire me as GM, and got hired as a GM. That's one of the biggest reasons that the Jags also lost out on Ben Johnson, was because Ben Johnson, from all reports, are saying that he did not align with what Trent Baalke was doing or what he has done. So what happens? Ben Johnson gets signed by the Bears. Shad Khan fires Trent Baalke. Liam Cohen had that stuff with the Bucks. They call Liam Cohen and say, hey, would you reconsider? We got rid of Trent Baalke. Takes a flight to Jacksonville. Sends the Bucks to voicemail as they're trying to call him. And then agrees to become the Jags head coach, and had one of the worst Duval screams of all time. Like, not screams, but you know how it is. It's Duval. You got to look this up, Kyle, if you haven't already. His was the cringiest Duval I have ever heard. I don't know what it is, but it was cringy as fuck. What were your immediate thoughts? I kind of had your immediate thoughts on Sunday after the stream, but like, what are you thinking? Liam Cohen of the Jaguars. You said you'd like Liam Cohen. There he is. There it is.
That's the best Duval ever.
Yep.
Because I did it at that game, and the whole stadium did it with me. It was unreal.
That's sick. That's sick.
One of those moments. I feel like Liam Cohen is the best head coach hire of this cycle. I like the Ben Johnson hire as well. I think that, but I feel very strongly this is the Jaden Daniels of the coach. This Ben Johnson's the Caleb Williams. Now you got the best head coach and the best quarterback, and you guys are gonna have to. There are no more excuses. Like, it has to work out. But for Liam Cohen, he's like the second guy. He was not even going to potentially be hired in this cycle, period. I mean, if the Jaguars didn't hire him, was he going to get hired by somebody else? I honestly don't know the answer to that. But when you look at Liam Cohen being under Sean McVay and everything that he gained, and then going to Tampa Bay, and then Baker Mayfield has his breakout year. Such a great year that the offensive coordinator ends up getting hired and going and leaving. Where did he end up going? Didn't he go to Tennessee? No. That was
No, you're thinking of Canales.
um Tampa Bay's OC last
Oh,
year.
yeah, Dave Canales. He went to the Panthers.
Yeah, he went to the Panthers. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So then they're like, well, we'll bring in Liam Cohen because Baker Mayfield played with him a little bit in
Yeah.
LA. And I remember reading reports in the offseason that said, hey, this is going to be a flawless partnership. This is going to work out. And all of a sudden, I was flabbergasted, to say the least, about how they were right. You hear these things in the offseason, but Liam Cohen, man, how good were the Bucs this year? They were third in points. They were top 5 in yards. They were amazing offensively. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're great. But there's been years where Tampa Bay's been 16, 17, and they've had those guys. They drafted Bucky Irving, and he found a way to be able to implement him without losing the reps to Rashad White. There's just so much to love about Liam Cohen that I just know that with this hire, Jacksonville is going to be good again. This is going to be a bounce back to the playoffs, or at least playing for the playoffs. The days of Jacksonville being like, what? Because we've seen Jacksonville go to the playoffs, win a playoff game, and then they paid their quarterback. And then this year was just a terrible year. It was just bad all around. Yeah. Liam Cohen is going to get that taste out of their mouth early. I expect Jacksonville to be a winning team next year. I think that they could even be like a 9-3 team by week 12. This is an amazing hire, and this was the next great candidate. I'm so glad that other people recognized it, because sometimes it takes 2-3 years. This was one where it was like everybody knew right away, and they jumped on the opportunity. He would have been a head coach. He would have been the Ben Johnson of next year had this not happened this year.
Yeah. Well, so I will say one thing about that. I'm going to say a couple things here, but going off that right there, remember last season, at the end of last year, Bobby Slowick was a name that was floated around as like potential head coaching candidate. He's definitely going to get a job. What happened? He stayed with the Texans. He's been let go from the Texans. So you have got to strike while the iron's hot. And I think that's exactly what Liam Cohen did here, because yes, he had great success with Baker and the Bucs, but you never know if you can really replicate that. You're confident as a head coach or as a coordinator, but can you do it to the effect where your name is going to be again floated for head coaching positions? You got to strike while the iron's hot. So part of me, with all the drama that surrounded Liam Cohen, part of me is like, hey, they let go of Bobby Slowick this year after having an awesome time with him last year. Franchises will do that. And guess what? Coordinators, head coaches, assistants, they can do that to the franchises too, man. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think that people should look at Liam Cohen and I think he deserves more of a traitor label than Ben Johnson from Lions fans, and that's just my opinion. But again, you got to look at this as franchises. The NFL is cutthroat. There's 32 head coaching jobs. There's 32 offensive coordinator and 32 defensive coordinator jobs. You've got to strike while the iron's hot, and that's exactly what Liam Cohen did. Now, prior to this season, Kyle, you and I were convincing each other that any team in the AFC South could win this fucking division. Yep. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Now, with Liam Cohen and what he's done with the Bucs this season and prior seasons, I think kind of what you're saying, I think he could have success early. I think the earlier that he started or that he accepted this job, the better. Just like with Ben Johnson seeing his introductory press conference talking about working with Caleb, Liam Cohen's going to be working with Trevor Lawrence and being like, what the fuck did you do in 2021 that made you a borderline MVP? And why can't we do that again? Tell me what you saw, what I see, and let's work to get you back to that form and back to winning the division as Jacksonville. I think Liam Cohen, again, like you said, is a great hire for this guy. They've got a ton of good guys on the offense. They need a little bit of work on the defense. And just like every fan, when they get a new head coach, who's the coordinator? Who's he bringing in? Who has he worked with? What have they done? Those are all important moves. I know this is a Bears fan this year. You knew it as a Broncos fan 2 years ago with Sean Payton, right? Like, you were in the weeds about coordinators, about wide receiving coaches, about pass coordinators, all that stuff. That's how every team goes, and that's how all the fans go as well. So this is going to be awesome because this at least guarantees Trevor Lawrence again. And I think Doug Peterson was also an offensive guy, if I'm not mistaken. It guarantees that you're working with a younger guy who's, proven a lot in terms of offense, and you've got a gifted quarterback who's had a couple down years, and a pretty gifted roster. What can you do with this, and how can we grow together for the next decade, if possible, right? So again, I think this is an awesome hire for the Jaguars. I think it was the obvious move they had to do. Also, another very important thing, too, for the Jags, Liam Cohen gets to pick his GM in a sense. He gets to have a say in that hire. One of the guys he's looking at is the actual assistant GM for the Bears right now, Ian Cunningham. But I think that's huge because one of the most important things, and you know this now with both Peyton's head coach and GM, is this alignment has to be perfect. Like, you guys have got to agree on a lot of things, and Liam Cohen being able to have a say in the GM and kind of having, the reins on players is going to be awesome. Is going to be great for that team. And I'm sure Trevor Lawrence is very happy about it. I'm sure that entire Jacksonville Jaguars organization and fans are very happy about it. Shad Khan is definitely fucking happy about it, especially after making such a crazy move that he did. It's like, nope, Trent Baalke's our GM. Oh shit, we missed out on Ben Johnson because he's our GM. Hey, Trent Baalke, see ya. Liam Cohen, what's up, dude? Come to Jacksonville. So it's gonna be great. I think it'll work out.
It's really his player development. So he was a player, Liam Cohen. He played high school, and he was actually the Gatorade player of the year. Rhode Island's Gatorade Player of the Year, but he wasn't. He played college at UMass, but then he played for the Alabama Vipers in 2010. Mm-hmm. And then in 2010 he was the Browns quarterback coach. Then he went to Rhode Island in 2011 as the pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Oh wow!
Then he was the Browns quarterback coach from 2012 to 2013. Then he went back to UMass, where he went to college as the pass game coordinator. Then he finally went to Maine as an offensive coordinator. That was his first gig as an OC. Then 2018, 2019, he was the wide receivers coach for the Rams and the assistant quarterbacks coach. Mm-hmm. The year after 2020, that's when they, 2021, I believe they won the Super Bowl. He was in Kentucky as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Very weird that he went from the Rams assistant quarterback coach to Kentucky's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach.
Yeah, wonder what happened there.
Very weird. But when you think of Kentucky, you don't think of like, oh yeah, a lot of stars come out of Kentucky.
No.
But Will Levis was his quarterback that year. And look how good Will Levis did.
10-3, yeah.
Does this name ring a bell? Wan'Dale Robinson?
No, it doesn't. No, I'm just kidding.
These are guys that's like, he made these guys NFL players that we know today out of Kentucky.
Yeah, he made these guys.
Yeah, and then went back to the Rams as the OC, won the Super Bowl, then went back to Kentucky as the OC. Weird back and forth with the Rams in Kentucky. It kept year after year they bounced.
It's like going back to your ex.
Yeah, and then finally last year he was Tampa Bay's OC and now the head coach. But this has been like everywhere he's gone, he's made results. Like when he was with the Rams and win the Super Bowl, go to Kentucky, Will Levis is number 3, 4 overall pick or whatever.
Yep.
Or what was he taken with the Titans, 28, I think maybe. But this guy develops players. So it's not just that he knows how to operate the players that he does have. It's the fact that the guys that you don't know, you're going to know next year because of this guy. That's what he does. The Bears drafted or brought in a couple coaches, right?
Yep. Yeah. So they brought in, and this goes with Ben Johnson, obviously. Now this was breaking news I had for Kyle on Sunday, but some of the low key hires I think I'm going to highlight first is Antoine Randall L as wide receivers coach as well as assistant head coach.
Great hire.
Yeah, and obviously one of the reasons it came with Ben Johnson is he knew Ben Johnson. He was the wide receivers coach with Detroit. The most famous clip of Antoine Randall L is making sure that what's his name? Jameson Williams, the speedster, the deep threat for Detroit right now. What's his name?
The defensive coordinator?
No. The wide receiver. Let's see.
For Detroit, Calvin Johnson?
Jameson Williams. No. It is Jameson Williams. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Out of Alabama?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm actually going to look that up right now. I'll look up his Wikipedia. But the most famous clip of Antoine Randall L., Ohio State and Alabama, actually. So, well, nice. Good schools. Is of him on the sidelines telling him, like, chewing him out. Like, dude, you had this. You can do this, blah, blah, blah. Jameson Williams talking back, but Antoine Randall L. not letting up. He's like, dude, what are you doing? So I think that one is great because it brings, one, you're bringing him in as an assistant head coach. That's huge for Antoine Randall L. Wide receivers coach, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, whoever the fuck else we get, Keenan Allen if he decides to come back, anybody else we draft, Tyler Scott, or whatever. JT Barrett as quarterbacks coach, also another good one. He was also on the Lions staff. JT Barrett, remember, Ohio State quarterback. Didn't really have much of a career in the NFL if I recall correctly, but played in the NFL, became a coach, and ended up on the Lions staff. Now, the two main ones I will hire, which are probably some of the most important. Dennis Allen is defensive coordinator. From what I've heard, what I've seen, what I've read, what I've heard on podcasts, Dennis Allen has had some of the best defenses in the NFL. And that is him taking over for Rob Ryan with the Saints with Sean Payton. And turning that defense into a top 5, top 10 defense in terms of points, yards, things of that nature. So nothing but glowing things about Dennis Allen. And of course, he's got prior head coaching experience for multiple years with the Saints over the last 3-4 years or so. Also kind of like a Matt Eberflus, not necessarily the best head coach, but he was kind of kept around because, well, he's been with the Saints for so long, and Sean Payton is obviously going to talk nothing but great things about him. But he ran his course as a head coach with the Saints. But in terms of just his defensive coordinator abilities, he's been really damn good. Nothing great. Again, not a Fangio, not a Spagnuolo, nothing like that, but really good in terms of turning defenses around and making those players Pro Bowlers, having career seasons. So Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator, huge. Like, what can he do with Tremaine Edmonds? What can he do with Billings, with Montez Sweat? Can he make those guys into Pro Bowlers, into All Pros? Jalen Johnson, can he make Tyreek Stevenson, who's also, they also hired Al Harris from the Cowboys as defensive backs coach. Can they make Tyreek Stevenson like another Jalen Johnson? Like, that is a great question. The development hopefully is there. So great hire with Dennis Allen there. And the offensive coordinator, former Broncos tight end coach, has worked with Sean Payton as well. I think prior to that in the Saints is going to be the offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle. Now, we talked a little bit about this on that stream, and you're like, well, tight end sucked. And we had a little back and forth on Twitter, or X as well. And I was like, well, when Adam Troutman's your fucking wide tight end one, it's going to be difficult. Now, obviously, he's 28 years old. He's been the tight ends coach for a couple years. But Sean Payton, 6 years ago, saw something in him, brought him into the Saints as a 22-year-old offensive assistant or whatever it was, and has grown and has stayed with Sean Payton these last few years. So nothing but good things to be said about Declan Doyle. There is a little bit of drama with his dad, who was an Iowa State strength and conditioning coach. Racist allegations, got fired, and pretty much given a severance pay to pretty much leave Iowa, or I think it's Iowa or Iowa State. I forget which one it was. It was somewhere in Iowa. So racist allegations from players, mostly black players. So there's some racist allegations there. Was one of the highest paid strength coaches, and then because of that showed favor or showed had bad words, bad interactions with players of color. That's kind of the only bad mark on Declan Doyle. But other than that, what are you supposed to do? Judge a guy by what his father did, what his parents did? No. From all accounts, for what I've heard, that is a guy who is well respected, not only within the Saints organization when he coached with Sean Payton early, but also the Denver organization. There was a guy, Zach Stevens from DNVR, who came on one of the Chicago podcasts and had nothing but really good things to say about Declan Doyle. The biggest question with Declan Doyle, and I think this is one of those weird hires that I'm fully ready to admit is kind of a weird hire, is to what capacity is he going to be the offensive coordinator? Like, how much of his, I don't know, decision making is going to go into that, because you're going to be working with Caleb Williams. You're going to be working with the offensive line. You're going to be working with the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs. You are the offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson is the play caller and the head coach, but you're the offensive coordinator, to which last week it said the offensive coordinator can do a lot for the head coach, who is also the play caller throughout the week. Takes a lot off his plate. What I think is going to happen is Ben Johnson, just like his press conference when he said, I'm going to spend a ton of time in a locked room with Caleb Williams, he's going to do the same with Declan Doyle. And who knows? This can go one of two ways with Declan Doyle. He could be a head coaching candidate in 3-4 years, or he could be one of the biggest mistakes Ben Johnson made in terms of staff in 3-4 years, or even sooner than that. So those have been the biggest hires after Ben Johnson, of course, that the Bears have made. And there's a lot of positive outlook to have on these guys, but Declan Doyle does bring that question mark so far.
Well, I'll say the Dennis Allen hire, I like it. A former Bronco. It's funny too, because in 2010, Denver was the worst defense in the league. Points per game, yards allowed per game, it doesn't matter. We were the worst, and that's why we got Von Miller, because we lost so many games that we were drafting at 2 overall, and we got Von. And then with that, we had to fire our DC, and we hired Dennis Allen in 2011. So that was the year we went 8-8, and you and me watched that Bears Broncos game with Tim Tebow.
Yeah,
that was Dennis Allen's defensive coordinator year with the Broncos, and there was a lot of games where we won because he kept the scoring low. Like, Denver wasn't a top 10 defense his first year; they were 23rd in yards allowed per game, and they were like 24th in points allowed per game. But going from 32 to 24. That's a big jump. That's a big jump. So
that's what he did with the Saints too. Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a history now. He was only with us 1 year, but that's because the next year we brought in John Fox and Peyton Manning, and the rest is history.
Yep.
But I mean, for the Oakland Raiders, it's like he was hard to judge because Oakland just always terrible. He was the head coach, and it was like. He just wasn't good. I mean, as a head coach. And he wasn't good as a head coach with the Saints either. And he was the next man up. Like, Sean liked him as the DC. So he seems like a guy that's just like, he's a good DC. He's had his chances at head coach. and it hasn't really worked out for him. Because when you're a DC from 2015 all the way to 2021, it was like if Sean doesn't walk away, he doesn't even get that head coaching position.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't obvious. It's not like he was taking interviews for other people. It was more of we'll promote from within because we got a tight Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton, and Dennis Allen were all tight. So he just
Yeah.
succeeded that job. So I like it. I think he's a good defensive coordinator,
And
and hopefully it'll work out for you guys. I don't think he's like revolutionary. I would have rather seen like a Vic Fangio come over,
mhm.
um, but I still think he could still be top 10. I think he's capable of that.
And one of the things, just like you mentioned, he could be the Bears defensive coordinator, obviously, if he's consistent and the defense is good for a long time, because like you said, he's already had his chances at head coach. I maybe third time's the charm, but a lot of teams are going to look at that and be like, it's all right, we're good. So the Bears, if he turns out to be a really good DC and continues to have the Bears defense top near the top of the league in great defensive categories, points per game, yards per game, he can be the Bears defensive coordinator for a while.
Exactly. That's a
So
good
that could be
point.
one thing.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be taking any interviews. And especially if the Bears do start winning, it's going to be accredited to Ben Johnson.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There was one. I mean, do you want to talk Mike Vrabel? I mean, it's been a little bit of old news, but he's bringing on. He brought on. Who was it? Mike Vrabel. Who did he bring on? Oh, so he brought on Thomas Brown, former Bears interim and offensive coordinator, to I think the passing game coordinator. And as well as assistant head coach, I can't remember, but he brought on Thomas Brown to the Patriots, but Mike Vrabel is the head coach for the Patriots. You said this is a great move, and it was Vrabel and Ben Johnson who were top two, but Vrabel brings that experience as well as that culture change, as well as that alpha mentality to a Patriots team that is easily struggling.
Yeah, and he's somebody that understands the Patriot way of what it was. I mean, this is somebody who played with New England from 2001 to 2008. He's a member of the franchise's Hall of Fame. When he went to the Titans to be a head coach, he brought Tennessee to 2 division titles, 3 playoff appearances, an AFC championship, revived Tannehill's career. Honestly, it's shocking that he wasn't a head coach in the cycle last year. And whoever hired him was going to be making the right move. But him returning to where he played and then bringing the offensive coordinator who has had the most success of any OC in any franchise, arguably, ever, Josh McDaniels with New England. These are the right moves New England's making. Terrell Williams, the defensive coordinator, he spent 6 seasons on his staff in Tennessee as a defensive coordinator. So you're going to have that familiarity between Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams. And we know that Tennessee had a good defense for much of Vrabel's tenure there. So I expect the combination of all these coaches with the Drake May, the way he looked, like I expect New England to. I mean, it always feels like this, right? All these teams are in great shape.
This is us discussing the AFC South in the preseason. This is what it is. It's like, oh my God, this guy looks good. This guy can implement this. Oh my God. So yeah, I get you. But he's bringing on the right coaches, like you said. One of the best, most successful OCs. DC, I don't know. Well, he's basically going to be the DC. But he's bringing in other guys too. Again, Thomas Brown, head coaching experience. Doug Marrone, former Jaguars head coach. He's going to be helping with the O-line. No actual title yet. But let's see. Riley Larkin, offensive assistant. Clinton McMillan, Kevin Richardson, Milton Pat. Like the main coordinator positions, he's stacking it with experienced guys. And Again, Mike Vrabel, already an experienced head coach. And like you said, he knows the Patriot way. He's going to implement it, but in the Mike Vrabel way, not in the Bill Belichick way, which we've seen coordinators try to do, but he's going to do it in his own way for sure.
Yeah, and there was a couple small ones. Aaron Glenn, head coach
Oh, yeah.
the Jets. They also
You like this one, right? You love this one.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, let's get rid of Robert Saleh and bring in another defensive guy. Al Golden was hired by Cincinnati to be the defensive coordinator. He was Notre Dame's DC. He's going to replace the fired Lou Anarumo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We talked about the Raiders. The defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, is going to be with the Falcons now.
Oh, okay.
Why did he was he takes over for Jimmy Lake. He was the Jets DC for 4 seasons.
That's what it was, yeah.
He took over as the head coach after Robert Saleh got fired.
And speaking of Salah,
he's with the 49ers.
Yep.
And that is a good hire because he was with the 49ers when he got hired to the Jets.
Yeah, a few years ago.
So this is him going back home. And then Brand Boyer was named the new special teams coordinator. Defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Weird. Detroit, I can't get over that.
Yeah.
And then the Miami Dolphins, they got a new receivers coach, special teams coach, Chuck Pagano, and then we're pretty much caught up. Now, are there any vacant spots right now? Aren't we still waiting for Saints? Yep. Nobody wants that job because they don't have a good quarterback situation. They don't have the top 3-4 picks, and they're like negative $200 million. Like that. You
could have said any number, and I would have believed it.
Yeah, it's like even the people that have gotten calls for that job have been like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay." They asked the Bills, Joe Brady, the OC over there. They asked him if he was going to come in for a second interview. They wanted him back for a second interview, and he's like, "I'm staying.
I'm good."
Nobody wants that job, and it's gonna be funny because they're gonna have to end up giving it to somebody that's like really that person that takes that job's like, this might be my only chance to be a head coach.
Kellen Moore might be the guy. They talked to him. Eagles offensive coordinator. They've talked to him. But you're right, though. Nobody wants this Saints job. It was like the 2 worst ones, in my opinion, and I think you agree, are Raiders and Saints. Raiders, you mentioned it earlier, have a lot to do. And yes, Pete Carroll is going to bring stability. I just don't know how they're going to build that roster up to a competitive one. The Saints, they're negative $1 billion in salary cap. Oh, Alvin Kamara, his entire salary 10 years probably after he retires because they keep restructuring it. They have a lot of pieces there, but the Derek Carr, God, what's his name? Spencer Rattler. Like, what are you doing there? Can we be bad enough to where we can get a good quarterback next draft? You know, like that one is gonna take a lot of work. What I will say is they have an aging defense, but they have some really good pieces offensively. Chris Olave, that other, what was the other receiver? Rashid Shaheed, I think is decent. He's kind of like a Khalil Shakur, where you don't really necessarily think he's a number one, but he can be a number one. And they got some pieces there on the offensive side of the ball, but it is going to take a lot of work for whoever takes that Saints job. This one might be a after the Super Bowl hire where it's like, oh, hey, the Saints finally got somebody.
Yeah, and Mike McCarthy says he's going to focus on the 2026 hiring cycle. So very similar. Wow. I've been comparing him to Sean Payton in a lot of ways with like the one ring, long-term success, but not getting back to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well, he's taken the same path as Sean, taking a year off and just waiting it out for the next year. So I'll close with this. You mentioned Kellen Moore, who is a Latter-day Saint. to be the next Saints head coach.
Oh, that's it right there.
But I wanted to close with this. Which team will be looking for a head coach next year that Mike McCarthy will be a candidate for? This is the toughest question of the offseason. I think. Well, let me see who you think first.
Let's see. If I'm going through my head right now, I'm thinking Bengals.
Ooh, what a gig! What a gig!
Yeah. I'm thinking Bengals. AFC, maybe the Dolphins.
What if it's the Bills?
Maybe the Bills. NFC. Oh, I don't know about the NFC. Trying to think NFC South. Maybe maybe the Bucks. You know?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I was going to say Baker's going to be on his 4th offensive coordinator in as many years. They just keep taking these OCs from the Bucks. So I don't know how much more similar to the Bills head coach, where you were saying, like, how much leash does he have? How much rope does he have? How much rope does Todd Bowles have? Yes, he's been in the playoffs. They've won the division for consecutive years, but he's not a very good head coach. He's made mistakes. And I think if Mike McCarthy is on the slate next year and you're looking at Baker Mayfield, who you just gave 5 years, $100 million to, you're like, maybe Mike McCarthy, maybe somebody else who's a really hot name. I think the Bucks are up there.
I think it's smart by McCarthy because you kind of have to have the foresight to be like, let's think about this. It feels like next year's available jobs, because all the jobs that are being filled right now are the teams that are quote unquote bad teams. At least right now they are. And those teams, usually their coaches get a 2-year pass. So you're thinking, okay, well, then who's going to be those teams next year that are available? I think it's those really gifted players that the
Giants?
teams have under exceeded. The Giants could be, but I'm thinking the Bills and the Bengals, like you said, one of these good teams is going to say enough's enough. And McCarthy, I think he's holding out for one of those.
McCarthy with Josh Allen is gonna. I think Josh Allen will love that because, again, he's an offensive guy. Joe Burrow, Mike McCarthy, another offensive guy, because both of these quarterbacks have defensive guys as their head coach.
Yeah.
So Bengals and Bills are very interesting ones. We've got an entire offseason and season to go until Mike McCarthy has an opportunity. But I like the question, and I like kind of looking towards that. So that was our coaching talk, Kyle. It's time for the motherfucking.
Welcome to the Chives with Kyle. I love how that just became like. Oh, God, no. All right. My Chives today. I had a really quick thing that I wanted to say. Do you have an opinion on Tyreek Hill right now? So Tyreek Hill, after the season, said basically he's done and he wanted out. And then they asked Mike McDaniel about it, and he was like, I'm not going to judge a player coming fresh off of a loss. You know, he's emotional, obviously.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that the Dolphins should probably pull the plug on Tyreek Hill in that whole situation and trade him, but it's harder to actually make the deal. When I think about Tyreek and all the money that he got, and then as soon as like Justin Jefferson got paid, he was like, yeah, my agent knew how I felt, you know, how it made me feel. I was like, what?
I can't wait to see what my next contract is. And me and you were like, huh?
What do you mean? How you felt? Like we're supposed to feel bad for you every time someone breaks the market?
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be. That's in the NFLPA. It's
Mm-hmm.
guidance.
Mm-hmm.
The market's supposed to break. Like, and you're also supposed to be happy for your friends, you asshole. Like, but anyway, the Dolphins decided to repay him and make him the highest paid again. And then after all of the bending over backwards that it seems as an outsider that the Dolphins have done, it's another case of we're irrelevant for 1 year. I want out. And it's like, dude, you've had miraculous seasons with the Dolphins. And you've said all this great stuff about Tua and the offense and Mike McDaniel. And it's been 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. And your quarterback didn't even play for most of the season.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it seems like his threshold, it's like his intolerance level is just like way less than you would expect. And he's like still got a ton of football left in him, it seems like, but he's also been somebody that I expected to retire early and pursue a podcasting career. I can just feel that like vibe coming from him. He's very active in social media. He hired somebody to like kind of walk around with him. He's always doing stuff on social media. So I don't know how in love with the game he is, but I do think he wants to retire pretty soon, but he doesn't want to do it without a ring. And
well, he's got one with KC, but another one, yeah.
Maybe he wants one more.
Yeah.
Just because of how many the Chiefs have won since he's left.
Exactly.
It might be getting to him. Now, he's going to turn 31 March 1st. So there's other factors to consider. Also, he's coming off a wrist injury. His agent said doctors wanted to operate on Hill last summer, but it would have meant that he was going to miss part of the season, so Hill decided against it. The results did not meet his standard because he finished with less than 1,000 yards, only 6 touchdowns, and honestly, Tyreek was like all season long. I mean, he was one of the biggest fantasy busts this year.
Yeah.
And he pulled himself out of the season finale against the Jets just because he was frustrated.
Yep.
And the Dolphins, they cannot let that happen again because that is a real power. This is the part of Mike McDaniel's cool hipster stuff where it's like, you also got to know when like to be like, that shit is not going to fly here.
Yeah.
The players are not in control. This is a chain of command and the players are underneath the coach. We pay you millions of dollars. Like you owe it to the fans that paid hundreds of dollars that they didn't have to come see your ass play. Your fans that don't care that you're out of the playoffs, they still want to watch you play, and you're going to have a pity party because you can't handle one bad season. Like, no way, dude. You need to be better. And now you got to go to the trade market and expect that there's a huge market for somebody like this. Who wants to pay for a 31-year-old diva receiver that is amazing as he is? He's 31 years old and he has a hefty price tag. I don't know who he thinks is lined up for him, but I don't think it's a better situation than Miami.
Yeah. I think we're losing you, Kyle, a little bit here.
Oh,
Kyle? Can you hear me? All right, we're going to bring Kyle here.
I don't know. My computer's dying.
Oh, okay. So then we'll wrap it up here then. Is it dying or is it like an internet issue or something? All right, we're gonna bring Kyle back here. Here in a sec, see if he gets back. The Tyreek thing, yeah, I agree. The thing about Tyreek, I think, is he has a little bit of FOMO. Obviously, fear of missing out with what the Chiefs have been able to do on such a consistent basis, and that is their season has ended no earlier than the AFC Championship game. So he's missing out on that. I don't really remember what the situation was with Tyreek and the Chiefs, and the pay and what that was all about. Regardless, I do think Tyreek wants that second ring. And I think that kind of, in his mind, and I feel like in a lot of NFL circles, would solidify him as a possible, Hall of Famer, almost like a shoo-in if he does have that second Super Bowl. So I think it's a fear of missing out, a fear of already missing out on what the Chiefs have done, and maybe just kind of that greediness from him. And while I understand, we have to understand that these players can't play forever, they got to cash in when they can. It does feel a little bit like you can get annoyed with a guy. You can get annoyed with Tyreek. So I get that part. But also similar to what Sean McDermott and that ownership and that front office may be thinking in terms of like, hey, how can we really move on to the next phase with this guy? Can we win a Super Bowl with Sean McDermott? How much more rope can we give him? Right? I think Tyreek is maybe in the same boat. Like, how much more am I going to give to this Miami Dolphins team when we get to the, playoffs and we just do not do offensively what we've been doing the regular season? So I think there's a little bit of frustration on Tyreek's part, and a little and quite a bit of frustration on the Dolphins' part. But I think Kyle had a great point in saying that McDaniel also has to be like, dude, cut that shit out. What are we doing here? Are we here to talk shit about losing? Are we here to talk shit about not getting as much money as Justin Jefferson or any other wide receiver that broke the market? Or are we here to try to win football games? Because right now, you're doing 2 out of the 3. And one of them is not winning the game. Any football game. So there's frustration on both sides. And Richard saying Packers need him. Packers, if they could get Tyreek, they are, man, that's a huge move for Jordan Love. That would be a crazy move for the Packers. They generally don't do it, and I think, Richard, you know that. But it would be a huge move. It would be a huge move for the Packers. Well, don't know if we're going to get Kyle back, so we're going to end it here. Want to give a huge shout out to Richard. We had Nick in here, and we had E-Dub as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. Go and follow us on X at and now Rick and NFL with Kyle, and go follow the Only Football Podcast at Only Football Pod. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hit that like button before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that follow button. Share button, if you will. Tell everybody you know, any football head that you know, about the Only Football Podcast. It would be awesome to have more people here, like our boy Richard saying take care. Richard, you take care as well. But thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate all the comments, all the likes, and the conversation. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode too. So chat. Always a good time, guys.